So I've got privilege now to introduce you to another great colleague, which is Dr. Emily Morton, who's going to cover a few of the things that have come up about the COVID vaccination and fertility. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you, Alison. So yes, so the first concern that we're going to cover tonight, and it's one of the things that's been picked up by the fantastic work that Healthwatch have been doing, but also speaking to some of our staff and teams that have been working in some local care homes, is actually whether the COVID vaccine is safe or affects fertility. And we know this is a concern. So I think the first thing to say really is that there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever, not a shred of evidence, that that the COVID vaccine has any deleterious effect on anybody's fertility or ability to get pregnant. There's no evidence that it would cause miscarriage. There's no evidence that it stops you getting pregnant or affects your pregnancy in any way in terms of actually preventing you to get pregnant if, for example, you were embarking on fertility treatment or trying to get pregnant. So I think it's really, really important that we get that message out there. It doesn't affect men's fertility either. So there's absolutely no evidence that it has any effect on men's fertility. There's nothing in the vaccine that has any hormones in it at all. There's nothing that would affect the genes or affect anything around a developing baby. So there's absolutely no evidence. And actually, if you're thinking about embarking on fertility treatment or thinking about trying to get pregnant, and you're in a high risk group, then actually the evidence is probably that you should go and have the vaccine. If anything, probably some of the fertility services and treatments have been delayed because of the COVID vaccination pandemic. So actually there's probably been considerable delay to any treatment that you might experience. Normal maternity services obviously are going on, and our community midwives are supporting our pregnant patients as normal. And but just thinking about if you were thinking about fertility treatment particularly, but there's absolutely no reason why, if you're thinking about trying to have a baby, please don't be frightened about having the vaccine. It's not going to affect your fertility at all. There's a few other points really, some of the things that we've been doing locally. So actually there's been lots of great work that's been going on. The council's been actually put on a virtual event for International Women's Day and took the opportunity to provide some of the information affecting some of the main issues concerning women particularly. Also been targeting, we've had local clinicians and fertility experts as well, targeting Facebook users aged between 16 and 35, and there's also been specific engagement work around Sure Start, Maternity Voices partnership as well, and Motherwell and online groups as well. And also our community midwives are well briefed in all of this, so are having lots of supportive conversations around patients who are thinking about getting pregnant and around our pregnant patients as well. And of course, evidence very much now is that you should have the vaccine if you're at risk, if you're breastfeeding as well. So that's another aspect to this as well. So although some of the advice has been around if you're actually pregnant and you're thinking about whether or not you should have the vaccine, but definitely if you're breastfeeding now, we do advise women to go ahead and have the vaccine if you're going to be of benefit, if it's going to be of benefit for you. I will not waffle on anymore, but I'd like to field some questions now, please. So if there's any questions, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
On this subject, thank you.
Thank you. We do have a couple of questions. The first one, and it's just probably to reiterate what you've already shared, can you have the vaccine if you're pregnant? And how long after having your baby should you wait to get it?
Great question. So the question, should you have your vaccine if you're pregnant? So at the moment, the JCVI advice is actually that unless the benefit outweighs the risk, then actually probably routine vaccination isn't needed. So particularly for women who are pregnant who are likely to potentially catch Covid-19, so those in the health and social care workforce, for example, or if you're in a high-risk group, then actually you may want to consider getting the vaccine. Because actually there's no evidence that the vaccine affects your pregnancy in any way. There's nothing to suggest that it affects the unborn baby. And in fact, the technology that's developed this vaccine is very, very similar to the technology that, for example, we use for our flu vaccine and for our whooping cough vaccine that we routinely and actually encourage pregnant women to have. We want you to have your flu vaccine if you're pregnant. We want you to have your whooping cough vaccine if you're pregnant. But because it's early days with the COVID vaccine, actually, there's been a very, very careful line saying, well, if you're not in one of these high risk groups and you're not likely to catch COVID, then actually routine vaccination is unnecessary. That is what's been said at the moment. In terms of actually, once you've had your baby, we want you to have the vaccine as soon as possible. So actually then routine vaccination is advised if you're postnatal. So does that answer the question? There was Katie, what was the second half of that question? I do apologise, please remind me.
It was how long after having your baby should you wait to get the vaccine?
Yes, so there's been no time limit at all. So if you're postnatal and you've had your baby and you've been holding off to have the vaccine, then you can go ahead and have the vaccine as soon as possible. It really is just accessing that appointment. And in fact, we really have had advice that we know that there's going to be a group of patients who are at risk, who actually have chosen not to have the vaccine during pregnancy. And actually the services are there up and running to get you vaccinated if you want to go and have the vaccine now you've delivered.
Thank you. We've got another question and it's along the same lines that says, I'm currently breastfeeding, should I have the vaccine?
Yes. So actually there is evidence. So yes, you should. So there's no evidence at all that the vaccine is going to affect breast milk in any way. So if you're breastfeeding, go ahead, and you want the vaccine, go ahead and have the vaccine.
Thank you. We've got a couple more questions. It's a comment around, and I think you have mentioned it, but it's worthwhile reiterating, whether the vaccine can have an impact on the fertility of both the male and the female, so the potential mum-to-be and her partner.
No, so there's no evidence. This vaccine does not affect your fertility, so it's not going to reduce your risk of getting pregnant or getting your partner pregnant. It will not have an effect on your fertility or future fertility in any way, for men or women.
That's lovely, and I think that has actually just answered the next question, which does ask, does it impact your ability to have a baby? But I think you've just answered.
No, absolutely not. No. So there's absolutely no. So it's really important. So, and actually, if you're trying for a baby and you're in an at-risk group and you've been invited for the vaccine and you want the vaccine, you should go and have the vaccine. There's no evidence that the vaccine is going to have any effect on this next pregnancy that you're trying for. Absolutely none whatsoever. So and the same is true if you're about to embark on fertility treatment as well.
Thank you, Katie, and I must apologise, I didn't introduce you at the beginning. So Katie's one of our excellent communications team who's helping. So thank you, Katie, for being with us on this tonight. Thank you, and those who are supporting in the background. So Emily, I found that really helpful. I thought that was really well done. I learned a lot by listening to you myself. So thank you very much.